welcome back to Chatting with Chaz. I'm so glad you're here. Today is going to be a really fun episode. It's one of my favorite topics. We're going to be talking about wellness, all things wellness. I've brought in the expert. I want to introduce you to my friend, Will Hamilton from Synergy. Synergy is like a lifestyle brand of gym, nutrition. It's a huge resource. Will also has a podcast that he talks about functional life, basically everyday life. So I'm excited to spend like an hour with him. You have so many questions on wellness. You asked me, it is the number one DM of how did you start your fitness journey? Where do I start? Many of you know that I started my journey about 2 years ago, and I just kind of organically started walking, just walking. But then I had so many questions because I lost a lot of weight, but I didn't feel like I was a voice because I'm not an expert. And so then I met Will, and I'm like, he is an expert. And when we met, we totally hit it off. And we kind of have a similar story, both entrepreneurs, both in the grind of life, both have kids, marriage, stress, and it's hard to stay on track during that time.
Amen. So
we're going to talk a lot about how to stay on track, how to get on track, and kind of where do we start. But before we get into much further, Will, tell my beautiful friends about yourself.
Oh, myself.
Yes.
Where do I start? I don't know.
Where do you start?
I'm a redneck from East Tennessee.
Good place to start.
Yeah. Grew up there, was into basketball sports in high school, a little bit in college, got into training after that, mostly athletes and college basketball players. Met someone in Knoxville that moved me down here and kind of offered me a job in the medical space. So I was in the medical field for 8-9 years, in mostly oncology and the cancer. We did imaging, so we did a lot of radiology for cancer patients primarily. That company grew and sold to Northside Hospital here locally in Atlanta. And then I got the opportunity to return to what I love, and that was back into sort of the health and fitness space that I'd sort of been born out of, something I was already pursuing for myself. And we started we could call it a gym, for lack of a better word, I guess, about 9 years ago now. And we've been really blessed with a very successful business and a great group of people that's kind of blossomed into this kind of, I don't know what you would call it, a plaza of health and fitness. We've got a nutrition company that you're familiar with now.
Yes, we're going to talk about that.
We do nutrition coaching. We've got the Functional Life podcast where we talk about all aspects of, as you would say, wellness, or what we call happy, healthy, functional, fun life. We've got chiropractic services on site. It's been real fun. So we just live in that world of keeping people healthy and fit.
And I love that you found your passion and purpose through your love, which was you were an athlete, it sounds like, and you kind of went back to what you know best, which is athleticism and working out and nutrition. And I feel like we're similar in that way. Our careers kind of followed a love of what we love, doing what you love.
Yeah.
And I think when you have that passion and you're invested in it, you're all the more invested in the people that come to your community.
Absolutely.
And when I went to your gym and I went to Synergy to meet with Boomy, who's a rock star all on her own, she's a nutritionist. I really sought the resource that you have there to understand, in a greater level, nutrition. But I remember and we'll get into that, but I remember walking in feeling a sense of community. It didn't feel like a normal gym.
Right.
It felt like you were walking into a room with a bunch of friends and people knew each other and there was a sense of community and, there was a synergy there.
Yeah, that's what the word means. It's like we want it to be a crossroads of not just, anybody can join a gym for $20 a month and go work out with your headphones on. You don't interact with anybody.
Right.
You look at yourself in a mirror. Like you probably know we don't have mirrors in our gym.
Right.
We don't want you looking at yourself because we spend all day doing that. We want you to be
love that.
with other people. So it's a crossroads of anything health. It could be fitness, it could be nutrition, we have discipleship and small groups that meet in our gym. So it could be spiritual health, emotional health. We've got people that met their spouse in our gym and found jobs. It's just anything that's that intersection of that I think makes fitness actually and health sustainable.
Yes.
Because it's not siloed.
And I think that is what, for me at least, I'll speak in this way, I think how my complete transformation, it was whole health versus I just want to get to a size 2.
Right.
It was body, mind, soul, spirit. And I know when we met, we talked a lot about that. And I was like, it's so awesome talking to another person who's thinking about all of those pieces. And I think that's where I found the success, that I wasn't on a gene size or a scale. It was spiritually, emotionally, mentally, physically. And when you start feeling all those changes, not just a change in your size or what the scale says, you're so, you're changing, you're transforming.
Absolutely.
So let's talk about holistic health first. Let's talk about that. Let's talk about the girl like me 2.5, 3 years ago.
Yeah.
That you wake up one day and you're just like, I don't even recognize myself anymore in the mirror. I'm stressed to the max. I've got 3 kids and there's a lot of things going on. I've got a business that I have to manage.
Yep.
I have just the plate is full. Where do I make time? How do I start? It's overwhelming. I'll be honest. I was 80 pounds overweight. I think. I don't know. It's because I stopped
Who
looking.
knows, right? Yeah.
I will. There was a time. This is like, I don't even want to know. So it could have been 50. It could have been 80. It was a lot.
Sure.
And so I just started walking. If someone comes into Synergy and they're like, listen, I just woke up today and I just said, enough is enough. Where do I start? What would you tell that person? What would you tell me 2.5 years ago?
That's such a profound and great question, because like you use the word wellness, and sometimes I'm like, I feel like, what the hell does that word even mean anymore?
Yes.
Because it's so huge, it means everything. Like, is it exercise? Is diet? Is it essential oils? Is it a wrap? Is it cold plunge? Is it red light? Like, it's overwhelming.
Yes.
And we've gotten to this place, I think, in our culture where, like, knowledge and advice is abundant, but actual wisdom is so scarce. Like, you can find information on anything. Any influencer, just Google it. You'll get all sorts of answers to questions you probably didn't even ask.
That's probably the hardest part. There's so many directions to go.
It's impossible for me, and I study this every day. Like, I'm reading this. When I meet somebody and they say, let's just say I'm unhealthy, whatever that means for them, and where do I start? In fact, with our nutrition company, we came up with something we called the performance nutrition funnel. And so if you kind of picture a funnel, or maybe like an upside down pyramid, right? And you start at the top. For me, it really depends on where someone is. If you want to just grade yourself on health, maybe you're an F. Let's say you're an F. Whatever
I was
that means.
an F.
Sure, maybe. And an F could be dying in a hospital, but it's probably not. Like, it's probably just you're overweight, you're
no energy.
sedentary, no energy, you feel horrible, and quite frankly, that's a lot of people right now.
High blood pressure,
diabetes, pre-diabetic.
That's where I was, pre-diabetic.
Drink yourself to sleep every night, caffeine to wake yourself up every morning. Like, that's the life you're living, right? We start very simply there, and it may not even be something that requires all that much effort. In fact, the very first thing I tell someone that doesn't cost you a dime, and I think it's actually something very fun to do, the very first thing I look at with someone usually is sleep. Like, let's start. If you can only do one thing, if you're an F and you're just trying to get to a D. Yes. If we start with nothing else, sleep by far is the most powerful game changer. In health. And
I want to talk to you. That was on my notes today.
It's huge. And it's not just huge because, like, you got more energy. Yes, of course it gives you more energy. But what it's doing to your body internally, what it's doing to your metabolism, what it's doing to your hormones, what it's doing to inflammation, gut issues, aging, stress, they all are remedied by this one therapeutic device that God gave us that we're supposed to do every day, and that's sleep. Right. And I get so tired now in our culture of the blowhards on Instagram that's like, I wake up at 3:30 in the morning and I get in my cold plunge for an hour and I do this. And you hear it's like effort. And you never hear them at all talk about where's the rest? Where's the sleep? Rest? You need 7 to 8 hours of sleep. Everybody. I don't care if you're the person out there's like, I function really well on 4. Like, no, you don't. Like, maybe you feel that way, but let me see your blood work. Like, I bet you don't. Everybody, unless you're just the rare anomaly, which you're not, you need 7 to 8 hours. Some people maybe even need more of sleep every night. I mean, remember when you were a teenager and how you could sleep 10 to 12 hours a night?
Correct.
And did your knees ever hurt? Did you ever not have energy the next day?
That's so interesting.
That's not just because you were young. I mean, that's a piece of it, but it's because of what your lifestyle was at that time too. You probably got more sleep than you ever got in your life. And we laugh at that.
When you're sleeping, your body's restoring itself.
Absolutely.
Aches, pains. I've never really thought about that.
It's huge.
That it's restoring literally what you're feeling.
Yep. You could lose weight just from sleeping better, literally, and never change anything else.
I will tell you, full disclosure, I would pride myself that, I only need 4 hours of sleep. I would pride myself that that's when it was quiet and I would work till 2 a.m. because I can get into email.
Yep.
I'd get the kids. It's probably a lot of you. You feed your kids, you clean the kitchen, you throw a load of laundry in, and then you're like, everybody's asleep. Well, now it's 10 o'clock, 10:30, or you're up late with a kid doing homework. And then you're thinking, I need to get ahead of my day. And so, well, let me just jump into email. Let me jump into social media. Let me get caught up. This was me. And I'm up till 2 a.m, alarms going off at like 6:37. I'm struggling to get out, really 6. And I'm a zombie and I'm going to Starbucks because I need the caffeine because I'm up. But I'm like, that's when I get my best work. It's creative. And that is one of the first things I changed was I started going to sleep.
So you say you are an expert, but you kind of are. You're an expert in yourself. Well, and you kind of know the stuff isn't that hard. I think we start realizing, and I had a friend tell me, I still was, I guess it wasn't one of the first. I think I started moving first. Sure. And then I realized I was exhausted still. They work hand in hand. Yeah.
Yes. And I was like, I'm healthy. I'm doing all the right things. But then I like 9:30 is when I go to bed now. Yeah. And I used to think 11 o'clock was early because I moved from 2. So then I went to 11. And then my friend Douglas actually was like, listen, if you went to bed at like 9:30, it'll change your life. And when I tell you that one move has changed my life,
huge.
And then I don't stay up all night. I get up in the morning and I feel ahead of it instead of trying to stay up late to be ahead of it.
Right.
It is a game changer. And I think you're right. I think that's part of the weight loss is.
It's not easy to do. We're in a world that's pushing you to do more and more, and wanting to suck up more hours every day. And the heroes we see out there are the ones that are out there touting, I'm up earliest, I'm the bed latest, I got more working hours. But my wife, and this is probably literally just the last year, I would say, in our lives, like we've become the people that like the badge of honor is how early can you go to bed? Yes. Like, I want to go to bed so early people make fun of you.
Yeah, like 8 o'clock we went to bed. We went to bed one night at like 7. Yeah. And we were like, oh, who are we? But we woke up. I felt amazing.
It's kind of awesome, though.
Yes.
Yeah, it's
and we were on vacation, and it was you could go to sleep because you're on vacation. You're like in rest mode, and then you actually go to sleep early, and you feel like a different person. The power of sleep, I think it's so understated. Is that the right word?
Oh,
it's so it's just amazing. So yes. Sleep, number one, and then waking up. What's your morning routine like? Let's talk about the morning routine.
It's nothing fancy. It's like for me, I mean, my morning routine, and I do think some people from the personality standpoints are different here. My wife and I are very different. I like to have a long, slow morning. So if I have to be somewhere, if I'm at the gym like this morning, I was at the gym at 5:15. I'm up at 4 to do that. Okay. And I don't have a long commute.
What time did you go to bed?
Last night, probably, usually if I'm up at those days, I'm going to bed at 9. I'm trying to.
Okay,
I'm
9 o'clock. You're starting around 8:30.
Yeah, my kids are in bed at 8:30, and then I'm right behind them. Like that's it.
I love that.
There's no more. There is no night routine after the kids for us.
Okay.
I have younger kids. My kids are 7 and 10. So I get it. Like there is things that have to get done. Bath time. You get all that in this stage of life. But then I'm right behind them. If I get up, I like to have a full hour, and I crack jokes to my gym, my class. Like they're like, "Why do you sit?" I just sit in my chair for an hour. Sometimes I'm reading. I might be reading my Bible. I might be. I drink a little bit of caffeine, not a ton. But the joke I always give them is like, "Oh, I want my face to look woken up for you guys, and I'm also writing my jokes for the day, like whatever I'm going to use in class."
Yes,
and that's actually half true. Probably, I'm kind of a dork, but. I will eat breakfast. I'm not the kind of guy that skips breakfast. I'm not into anything like that.
So you eat before you work out?
I do, always.
That was a question I had.
Always. That's not necessary, but that's what I enjoy. I don't like to work out on an empty stomach. I don't feel like I have energy, and actually probably get a little bit more nauseous if I do. And some people are the opposite. Some people, if they eat before they work out. But I also don't work out early in the morning. When I get up in the morning,
you're going to work.
I don't feel like exercising. A couple of days of the week, I do play basketball in the mornings for fun. But I work out midday, but I'm going to work. But I will still eat even if I'm working out in the midday before that. Okay. So my morning routine is very simple. It's just a little bit of time to get my mind woken up. It's a little quiet time for myself. And I want to be awake for a period of time before I have to go engage.
Right.
If that makes sense. My wife, 15 minutes, sprint out the door. That's her thing.
Yes.
And
Does she get up at 4 with you?
No, she won't get up at 4. She gets up usually and I don't get up at 4 every day. That's probably 2 or 3 times a week.
Okay.
So my sleep schedule, if there's anything to take away from me, the so-called expert, which I use that word very lightly, yes. Is that my sleep schedule is inconsistent, but the amount of hours, usually my schedules, I'm either up at 4 or up at 6. 4, 6, 4, 6, 4 is kind of what it looks like. no matter what, when I know what time I'm waking up the next day, I'm almost always backing into that to make sure I get that 7 to 8 hours of sleep.
I think that's a big takeaway for us today. Number one is sleep. So I think that's a great starting point. It doesn't cost any money to just go to bed earlier.
I think
and you
it's
know
fun.
what? It actually is kind of fun. And it's kind of, I think for women, because our audience is predominantly women,
Sure.
we feel like we have to have everything in order before we go to bed. And I kind of stopped that too. I was like, you know what? I need to be in order. So sometimes I still have
That's
dishes
right.
in the sink.
Yep.
I go to bed with the counter messy and I'm like, you know what? There's tomorrow. I'll get to it. I'm going to get my sleep. So make sure you're taking care of you and get that sleep. So then morning routine. Let me just ask you, I'm just curious. What do you eat in the morning for breakfast? Like, is it eggs? Is it a smoothie? Is it a supplement? Do you do supplements? I'm just curious.
Okay, sure. Yeah, you asked. I'll tell you.
Talk expert.
Most mornings, if I have the time, what I like to do is I'll do 2 eggs on some piece of toast or a bagel, some sort of a carbohydrate with that. And then if I've prepped it ahead of time, I actually mix up. This is just something like a homemade chorizo with some lean ground beef and chorizo seasoning. I'll do with it to give me some extra protein in the morning.
Okay.
So I'll have that. And then I'm not a big coffee drinker during the week. Just I don't love the taste of it, but I will have some like caffeine powder. I'll mix in with a bunch of water. So my routine is I will have that before I have anything else. I want to get hydrated quickly. I have in this just shaker cup I mix. It's got a little bit of amino acids and
People
caffeine.
are going to ask what it is. Is it a brand or can you not share that? I don't even know.
It's called Amino Energy. I get it on Amazon.
Okay.
It's real cheap. Just look up. I think On Nutrition makes it. Amino Energy. It's amino acids, which are just so you know, a protein broken down as amino acids. So they kind of rebuild into protein. It doesn't
I
have
use
protein in it.
Bragg's a lot on everything.
That's great.
Do you like Bragg's?
Yeah, I do.
Amino
I like
acids.
Bragg's.
Okay.
So it's the same. That's amino acids
Okay.
too. So this is just amino acids with the caffeine built into it.
Okay.
I have a little bit of creatine. I think creatine is for people that exercise regularly is a very beneficial supplement. I have a little bit of creatine in it. Then I have a powder of mixed greens. You've probably seen that. Several brands out there I use. Athletic Greens is the popular one people will be familiar with. I use one that's a mix of berries and greens, so it actually is more red and a little sweeter, like tastes like berries.
And you add that to your water
I add that all in the same cup.
with the creatine and the
And the caffeine and
Caffeine.
amino acids. That's right.
Interesting.
And
A
I'm
little
drinking
cocktail, breakfast
that's a
cocktail.
cocktail, so it's not a smoothie, but it's water with some extra stuff in it with my breakfast.
I like it.
Sometimes
Okay.
I'll do yogurt instead, Greek yogurt and granola, but those are kind of the 2 main things.
Okay, very
Yeah.
good. All right, so I have lots of questions. We're
Keep
going to do
going.
like
I'm
a
here.
rapid fire.
Hit me.
Tell me about your why. So you went into
Yeah.
nutrition. It's your passion.
That's
you were
great.
married. We kind of met at Starbucks,
Yeah.
and we kind of hit it off. And you were saying you were in this grind. Tell our audience a little bit about how you were like, listen, I'm unhealthy and I'm like a gym owner. I'm an entrepreneur because the entrepreneur part kind of took its toll.
It does on all of us.
And a lot of us, it's whether you're an entrepreneur or you're working 9 to 5, work takes a toll and we feel like we don't have time.
That's
So
right.
let's talk about that.
Well, I love that your story is what sort of made me think about that. I think people probably think like we're great friends. We've met each other once before
Yes,
this.
yes.
But we're just we say we're kindred spirits.
Kindred
so we
spirits.
talk like we've known each other for years.
Yes.
But your story reminded me of mine because I got into health and fitness because I loved it to begin with. But then you become a business owner inside of that. And I did it at the same time because our first child was born, my son. And I didn't want to go back to the corporate life. I wanted something flexible where I could spend as much time as possible with him. I didn't want to have to put him in daycare. My wife works full time. She's great at what she does. And we just knew that would be a requirement. So part of that grind was I felt like I was a part-time gym owner because when I first opened my business, I didn't have a lot of business. I was there, but then I was a full-time dad. So I was kind of always on the go, back and forth, struggling to get this business off the ground, at the same time struggling to be the best dad to a baby, which, I'm not
It's
equipped
hard.
to do.
Yes.
My wife would be much better and was much better than me,
Yes.
but I'm stuck with this baby. So it was eating, I can't tell you how many meals I ate at QT at a gas station.
Right.
That was my life.
Eating
at
on the
the time.
go.
That's
Same.
right.
We
That's
talked
right.
about that. Just in the car, racing around.
Yep. And then somewhere about 3 years into that process, business was growing. All those things were going well. My son was still alive, so I feel like I was doing okay as a dad.
Yes.
At least I met the bare minimum requirements. Successful. He was being fed. And I woke up and I was the heaviest I've ever been. I think I was 255 pounds. I was the size of like an NFL defensive end with none of the speed or athleticism. That's what I tell myself. I have no reason to be the
And
size.
you just wake up one day and you
just wake
finally
up
see it.
And you're like, what has happened to me?
happened?
And what was my why? I think my why was realizing that I I'm supposed to be a professional at this, and I'm supposed to be setting an example, not just for my clients so that I can gain business from that, but for my family, for the people that look up to me and love me and rely on me. I've got this little child here. What am I teaching him? Like, we're having meals at a gas station. Like, is this normal? And then your why. I coach my little son's basketball team, and I always tell there's 3 words. There's want, work, and win. Everyone wants the win. And they understand you have to do the work to get to the win, but you have to have a want. That's your why. And if the want's not good enough, then all you're left with is the work. And that won't be sustainable because it's just work. There's no reward out of that. You'll give up. And your story was so great. Your want can't just be, now that I know more of your story from your childhood, your want in fitness and health and wellness can't just be, I want to look good.
Right.
That gets you in a lot of trouble. That's too
correct.
shallow.
That's how I was always doing it.
Smile and look pretty.
Yes, correct.
That only gets you so far, and eventually it'll fail because it's a cheat. It's a fraudulent want. That's such a good point. It's got to be deeper than that.
Correct.
And I think, I'm probably like for a male, I'm an Enneagram 3. I'm probably as vain as anybody. Sure, I want to look good. I don't think there's anything inherently wrong with that. But it has to be, for me, it was that, I'm a father. I'm a professional at this. I need to take myself more seriously, and I owe it to myself to. If I'm trying to help others pursue excellence and I'm coaching them to do that, yet I'm not doing it myself,
right?
Well, what does that make me? That makes me a fraud. That makes me a hypocrite in the worst kind of way. So I think it was that for me.
That's huge.
And what was it for you?
I think a lot of it was the real thing was mentally. I was struggling. It was right when I was going through. It was pre-divorce, but the marriage was in shambles. The marriage was done.
Right.
And then it was the whole what's going to happen to my family, the worry, the stress, also running this business. I was doing it alone. It was growing rapidly. It was taking a toll. Growth is great, but it takes a toll on you.
Oh gosh.
Because you're just trying to keep up with it.
Yeah.
And I wasn't really equipped because I'm kind of a newbie to being an entrepreneur. So it was growing fast. My kids had so many needs. My boys both had just broken their legs and they needed me. And I felt like there wasn't enough of me. But then I looked in the mirror. I actually was on a family trip.
Okay.
And my kids wanted to go walk this trail, like in California, like where all the celebrities go.
Okay.
And that was like their big thing. Like, I cannot wait to go to this canyon. So I went and got a pair of Nikes in Beverly Hills. We went to the store. We went to the Nike store. We're going to the canyon. And I feel like I'm 20 and I feel like I still look like I'm 20. You know how you like deceive yourself? Yeah. I'm like, yeah, I'm there. I'm there. And I could barely go a mile. And I had never not been able to keep up with my kids.
It was too strenuous, you're saying?
Yes. I was like, what is wrong with me? I'm like huffing and puffing. And I just never felt that I couldn't keep up with them. And I ate a salad that night. I ordered a salad. It kind of started there. And then we left the vacation. Everything imploded in our life. I was definitely now going into a divorce. And the way I would function and get a way to process the unraveling of my life was I would go for a walk.
Wow.
Because I didn't want my kids to see me cry and I didn't want them to hear the phone calls with attorneys or my sister crying. So I would go to this park right down the street and I just would walk once, then it was twice, then the phone calls got longer with the attorney. It was 3 times. And I was doing 4 and 5 miles and then clothes started to change. I wasn't on a diet. I wasn't... And then I'm like, gosh, this is different. And then I started changing my eating habits because I knew going through this divorce, I needed to be on my A game.
Yep.
And so mentally, I didn't feel sharp and I didn't feel strong. So I knew if I could get my life under control, the only thing I could control was me, this body, and what I eat and what I do with it. And so that's what I took control of because everything else was out of control.
Wow.
So that was kind of the turning point. It was not keeping up with my kids who were teenagers and like ready to roll. And then it was also the only thing that I have any control over right now. It wasn't even the business. I didn't know what was going to happen was my person.
You see how I love in that is that in both of our stories, the focus, the real want was all relational. It's because of someone else. It's because of people that you love, that you want to be there for, that you want to be able to keep up with, that you want to support. Nowhere in your story do you say it's because I wanted to look better or I wanted to hit this number on the scale. And you probably did look in the mirror and say, I don't look good. That was probably also true.
I mean, I saw that for years and I just felt like I can't do it. You know what you tell yourself? You're old. You'll never get back to that. I'll never be that. So order the chicken tenders, right? Whatever it is, the pizza. Yeah. I was a pizza consumer.
It's apathy.
Yes.
You give up on yourself.
I gave up.
Yep.
Completely.
Yep.
And then I started the journey of walking. I started the journey of awareness, like thinking about things.
Yeah.
And like what I was eating, I wasn't even thinking about that. And then I went to the doctor and they said, you are pre-diabetic.
Right.
And that's when I kicked it into gear. I was like, wait a second. And they wanted to put me on medication.
They put that truth on you.
Yes. And I walked out and I was like, I'm not taking the medication. Give me 3 months and I'll come back in 3 months. And I just kicked it in high gear. And that's when I changed my nutrition. Like I truly was tight and right, very clean, very lean.
Yep.
But I did not know really what to do. And what I did for nutrition was I ate a lot of salads and protein. But I think that's what I could talk. So you get the fitness piece maybe under control. People lose weight, cardio.
Sure.
Women, it's more difficult with muscle, right? I feel like it is. Would you agree?
I think it is because of the way. Yes and no. I think hormonally, building muscle is more difficult for women. But I think also culturally, we've come out of a place where that's never been marketed to or prioritized until very, very recently in fitness history to women. Women came out of the Jane Fonda era. Back in the day, women jogged and men lifted weights. That's what you did.
That's so true.
And think about that. We are not very far removed from that.
You're right, actually.
Which is crazy.
I never really stopped to think about it, but I've always been cardio and weights for guys, and I don't want to get bulky.
That's right.
And I think every woman thinks that.
That's what we've been taught.
That's what we've been taught.
Yep. So
debunk that. Tell us what's really up with that.
For your audience, if it's mostly women, like I would tell you, the gym side of our business is the vast majority of them are women. I probably 60 to 70% of our members are women. Almost all our entire coaching team are all women, and they are strong, beautiful, powerful, assertive women of excellence. They're great mothers. They lead businesses. They can, squat 200 pounds
I love it.
on their back. They're not bulky. They're not any of these negative words that our culture puts on you. They are just super fit, athletic, healthy, super women, you would think. But actually, they're just returning to what I think. This is, you're going to hear a lot of this from me, but I do have a very evangelical worldview. I think there's a design in that from our Creator. But it's also, by the way, even if you don't buy into all that, just what are female mammals on Earth animals? They're strong mothers. Like, look at a female, name the animal.
Right.
Like, do they look like dainty little skinny things? No. They're usually the most powerful, vibrant, strong. They're carrying their kids. They are made to be that.
Because that's a great point.
So muscle mass, especially for women's, never been prioritized. It's never been educated. It's been shame-driven in our culture, especially starting at a young age. I think it has a lot to do why women's athletics still to this day aren't prioritized in the same way or celebrated in the same way men's athletics are. That's the stuff reserved for men. And as women get older, especially as they age, hormonally things change. And if you don't start, sarcopenia is a word for losing muscle mass over time, and it leads to a disastrous slew of health issues. It makes metabolism slow down. It makes gaining fat easier and losing it make harder.
Interesting.
It does all of these things. So we put a third of what we do with all of our clients is weightlifting and weight training for that very reason, to build, maintain, and preserve muscle mass. And as an anecdote, it's also going to make you look the way you want to look. You're not going to look bulky. You don't have testosterone that's going to do those things to you.
Right.
It's going to make you look genetically however you're going to look. And that's why I tell people to quit focusing on that. That's too shallow of a why.
Right.
You just need to get as healthy as you care to get, as you can pursue.
Yes.
And then look the way you look at the end of that.
Yes.
Don't worry about that.
And it's almost surprising what your body can do. I think, you think about what you could do, but I realize like my body is doing what I'm asking it.
Yep.
And that is kind of wild. Like I don't rely on me anymore. I'm like, I think my body can run this far now.
Sure.
I think my body can perform at a higher level instead of I have to push it.
Yep.
I feel like I've got a really strong body that can push. And we forget about what we have, God designed.
That's right.
That can get us to where we think, here's a mountain of health that I can't defeat. But by just kind of giving into your body and letting it do what it's naturally made to do, and you just kind of getting behind her,
that's right,
pushing
instead of squandering it.
Yes,
like that did never dawn on you. Your body was designed to be able to walk that trail in California.
Yes,
like any other mammal on Earth that's a female can do that.
But I screwed it up.
But you screwed it up.
Yes.
That's not God's fault.
So
that's your fault.
True. That is our fault.
Yeah.
But we can get a second chance.
You can.
So it's not. What about the person that's like, it's just too late for me?
Well, it's not.
It's never too late.
It's never too late. Absolutely. I mean, the fittest woman in our gym is almost 60 years old. She's a grandmother, and she can climb to the top of a 20-foot rope without, I mean, like it's nothing. She's a tiny little.
She's powerhouse.
Yeah. And we have another lady who cuts hair. She's a cute little blonde grandmother who just wear people out. Like you wouldn't believe. It's never too late.
Never too late.
To be functional. Like too late for what? Are you going to be in the NBA? No, that's not your goal.
Right.
Your goal is to be able to walk that trail. Well,
yes.
Why shouldn't you be able to do that? Now, it's an uphill battle. And the reason it's an uphill battle, I would say, is not necessarily your fault, because we are living in a food culture and food society and a health culture that the cards are sort of stacked against us. And that's tough. That means that, again, like I said, there's a wealth of information, but a real lack of actual wisdom out there. Things are being marketed to you. There's all these people trying to sell you something. There's food around every corner that out of convenience. Every piece of technology that comes out, if you think about it, that makes life more convenient, also makes us burn less energy, just makes us lazier.
So true.
I mean, we don't even have to drive to our grandparents' house now. We can just FaceTime them.
Yeah.
So just all those little things. We have escalators and elevators, don't need stairs. Like everything that comes out makes it harder for you to be healthy. It's true.
It's very true, actually.
So it's
and the
stacked against
phone.
you.
I mean, how many times did people just sit and hours go by? I mean, that was me. Netflix. I mean, that, I used to relax sitting and watching Netflix. And then not only hours would go by, days would go by. Now you're binging. And then you're eating a pizza or popcorn.
Exactly.
And now my way of relaxing is different.
I had this argument. It's a discussion, I should say,
discussion.
with my wife just yesterday, because, and maybe you do this, but she's gotten into the whole grocery delivery now, right?
Yes.
And also,
I really don't do it. I don't like people shopping for my
either.
food. It messes with me.
And I don't like the strangers putting food on my porch.
Yes.
So it started from that mixed with the Target drive up where they'll just bring it to your window.
Oh, yeah. Now we can't even go into Target.
Right. And I said, I don't want this. I don't like it. She's like, what's your problem? This is so much easier. I was like, and I try to get philosophical. It's really not the point. But I was like, well, everything here, I don't even drive to the store, get out and walk up and down the aisles to get my own food anymore. That's making me fat.
Right.
Like, this is crazy.
Yes. The culture is lazy. The culture is getting lazier and lazier.
Because we fill ourselves up. We feel like we don't have time for everything. Yes. We're stressed. But back to your point. The point is, yes, we need activity. We are designed to be strong, to be healthy. And I tell everybody, but women especially, there's a caloric equation out there. Cardio burns calories. You need that. But if you could only do one thing for the rest of your life, one fitness thing.
Yes, that's a great question. What is that?
It would be lifting weights. It'd be strength training for sure.
Strength training.
Yeah.
I was going to ask you, so if you take a week, 7 days, like I think I'm working out definitely 6 days a week, mostly 7. Would you say 2 days cardio, 5 days weights? Would you say just do weight training, Chaz?
Or both. Could you do both at the same time?
Yeah, let's talk about that. What would you tell me? Like, I've lost some weight.
Okay.
Here we are. I want to maintain. I want to get stronger. I want to build muscle. What do you tell us?
The first question I would ask you or anybody is how much, again, where are you trying to get? Are you an F and you're trying to get to a D? Because that's going to look different than getting from a D to an A. It's going to require different things. How much time, answer this, in a day, if you are going to work out, how much time do you give yourself to exercise? Is it 30 minutes? Is it an hour? What do you have carved out?
I could, right now, I'm probably looking at an hour and a half.
Okay, great.
But I could do 2 hours.
And how many days a week?
Because I'd get up early enough to make it happen.
How many days a week are you willing to do that?
I would do that.
Realistically.
I mean, I would do it every 7 days. I'm pretty addicted to it.
You're into this.
I do love it. But I would say, okay.
When you started, how about when you started?
5 days.
5 days, that's great. The magic formula here then, if I have let's say I have an hour a day, 5 days a week. Absolutely, and you wanted to do what we would call a split. So if you're really intentional about some being cardio and some being weights, I would for sure say 3 days a week I'd be focused on strength training. And if you're going to do cardio, you're going to run, that's what you like to do, make that the other 2 days of the week. Now in our gym, what do? Well, we try to do it both at the same time. Guess what? If you lift weights quickly, you're also getting out of breath, you're doing cardio, right?
Right.
Lift a light weight quickly, do 100 of them. Do 100 squats as fast as you can right now with just your body. You're going to be really out of breath.
Yes.
You're getting cardio, but you're also strengthening your legs. So that's a very small example of something that we might do. And all group fitness gyms around the country that everyone will be familiar with, all the brands are incorporating that to some extent because they know on a limited amount of time, that's the best bang for your buck for somebody. A lot of people don't have an hour, honestly, to give to fitness. They'll give 30 minutes.
Right.
So a lot of fitness classes are 30, 45 minutes. Hours are an hour. But if you're really going to split it, and I don't mind that. I think that's a fine thing to do to focus on.
Like you could do weights in the morning perhaps and run at night.
Yeah. And then now that's excellent. Now you're splitting, you're training now twice a day. I think for someone like you, you'd be like what we would call at this point a level 3 client. For a level 1 client, that's so overwhelming that they would never think about it.
Right.
You know,
right.
And for someone that's listening to this to say, "Hey, I'm a mess. I'm where you were that in California."
Yes.
I would say let's go for a long walk for an hour twice a week. Let's try to get into the gym and let's lift weights strenuously. Like don't grab a little 5-pound dumbbell and like it should be where if you're doing a set of 10, the last few are really hard. You have to challenge you. What if it doesn't challenge you, it doesn't change you, right? That's a cliche.
I love that. If it doesn't challenge you, it doesn't change you. That is truth.
And that's the same in training and muscle and whatever we do. I mean, the idea is literally we're breaking muscle cells and fibers apart. And then they grow back stronger. Protein synthesis happens and they fill back in stronger. Well, none of that happens if you never break them down. If you just work them, like eventually, like right now, you walking that trail will be very easy. Right? That wouldn't even be a workout for you.
Right.
But then it was. That was very difficult.
Hard. Yes.
So you start with what's challenging you, with what you have to really push you through. But by the way, that's what makes you feel good is you accomplish something amazing. Like you release those endorphins. And then you see, for lack of a better word, the synergy. Oh, well, now at night, I'm actually tired. Now I actually go to sleep.
Right.
I need more sleep.
Isn't that
and
interesting
when I
how it
wake
all
up,
works?
I'm hungry and I'm craving nutritious food, so I can go do this again. And then you see all these pieces start working together.
It really then becomes, and again, it's baby steps, right? We're starting with a walk twice a week, you know, but it does become necessary to me. Like I feel like it is just part, and it becomes effortless. It doesn't feel. This whole journey, I never felt like I was on a diet. I never felt like I was restricted. I think more so now I think about things more because I just look at my body differently. Like I want to feed it fuel versus like, you know, restrict it. I'm not in a restriction mentality. I'm like, oh, why did I eat Cheez-Its? It's no fuel. It's like a waste, right? So I just think about it differently. But that is the beautiful thing about this journey. It has felt effortless because it's been kind of holistically. Like it just has given me energy. I sleep better. Like there's so many benefits to all of it. Like and if I don't do it, I feel
worse.
Yeah, it does affect me.
And people that have never done it might think they feel. I would argue most of them don't actually think they feel good. But I've been. You know, I've got friends again. I'm from East Tennessee, a very unhealthy part of East. I'm from a little crystal meth town, is what I call it.
I love it.
And I'll go back home. There's people that are like, "Nah, I feel fine." You know, I drink my Mountain Dew, wakes me up. And it's like they don't know how bad they do feel until you actually feel good.
Amazing. That is so true.
They fooled themselves. But it creates that synergy where all those pieces. We've talked about the fitness part, and now you're right. Now you're looking at food differently. You're looking at it as fuel, which once again, I don't mean to sound like a science dork, but that is what all mammals that walk the earth. Do you think a deer eating that grass is saying, "Oh, I want the deep fried grass"? No, he's eating that grass because he needs fuel to do what he needs to do. That's how humans were intended to eat. It is a calorie is a unit of energy. It literally is that. It's fuel for your body.
That's interesting.
Now I didn't
know that a calorie is a unit of energy.
Yeah.
That's a good little fun fact.
We'll get into that. People think it's this evil little thing that makes them fat, and it can. But the definition of a calorie, you have to check me on this, I think is the amount of heat it creates to raise 1 milliliter of water 1 degree Celsius. That's what the textbook definition of a calorie is. And I'm not one of those crazy people that think that food shouldn't be enjoyed. I do. I just think that over time our culture has been obsessed with food. I mean, food is a therapeutic device for some people.
It was for me. I mean, food was I would say when you're stressed, that was like, okay, I'm driving home. I'm like, kids, what do you want for dinner? You want pizza? Yes, that sounds good. It's like comfort food. And so now I'm like, I need to run. You know, I'm stressful. I had a stressful day and I'm like, I want to run. But it was pizza. And I think it can be, I was an emotional eater or just, you know, there's so many things.
It's crazy. We've taken something that was never intended for that. And now we actually get joy from it. Like we get comfort. Yes. We get all of these things that we are supposed to get from somewhere else. we're getting it from something we put in our mouth. That's crazy if you think
Isn't
about it.
that crazy,
It is
actually?
crazy. But
It
that
is.
is what we've taught. We've developed a whole culture around it, and these foodies and these whinies that swirl it and smell it. And it's like all these senses are going on.
Do you drink?
Not much. I drink
Okay.
very, very little. I've probably had 10 drinks this entire year at the most.
Okay.
And that's not because I'm trying to be some pious, self-righteous thing. I never really did enjoy it to begin with much. I don't like the taste of it. Like I would take Kool-Aid over a beer. Like I just don't like.
Yeah, give me a Coke over a glass of wine.
Same here. I'm with
Yes.
you. We talked about our Coke story.
Right.
I went to Coke Zero a little earlier than you do.
Yes.
But I am real into diet soda, so I have to for Lent. That's what I've given up. That's my fasting day.
I'd love to talk to you because I did the whole Diet Coke thing to get me off Coke.
Yeah, it's great.
And I struggle with it because I still want it, but I know I worry about cancer. And so in the back of my mind, aspartame is like a dirty word, right?
Yeah.
So tell us about Diet Coke because I know a lot of us drink Diet
It's a
Coke.
buzzword,
I know it's like a thing. It's a culture, I swear.
Metabolically speaking, it is, it's no different than water. It has 0 calories in it. So if you're trying to lose weight, but you're still craving that sweet tooth, it's most health and real practical level nutrition coaches I know that are much, much bigger than I am recommend it. Like they like it. Now, there are some mixed reviews on the studies of aspartame out there.
There's so many different.
There is,
yeah.
and so if you want this will just be my opinion. I'm not a clinician or a researcher. Is that the jury's out, and right now it doesn't look like there's enough evidence to say yes, this is linked to cancer. The problem is people that consume a lot of soda in general or a lot of diet soda are coming from an unhealthy lifestyle. So there's so many other markers that could be leading to their rise in cancer and the way they live life. There's a lot of people, for instance, the correlation between people that drink a lot of diet soda and smoke cigarettes is very high. I don't know why,
Right.
but for some reason those two things go hand in hand.
Right.
And so the jury's out on that.
Okay. I was just curious. I think it's a good question because everyone's drinking Diet Coke.
They are. And I think
but
as
I
long as
always
you're
tell
not
my
having,
daughter, I'm like, we got to get off the Diet Coke. I'm like,
I
there's
don't
no
think you do.
nutritional value, but it did help me wean myself off of Coca-Cola.
and now you're much healthier for it. So
Yes.
I think it's a net positive. And
I think if you take everything away from everybody, like
say you have
you
to
might
die
say, just don't touch my Diet Coke.
Chaz,
Okay.
you've got to die of something. It might as well be
Yes.
Diet Coke. Like at least
Okay.
at least you're happy. I don't think that's the case. As long as it's not over the top.
Right.
Consuming it.
What is your biggest hard no? Like, absolutely, this is the worst thing you could do nutritionally. And let's ask nutritionally and like a woman that walks into the gym. I was very nervous to walk into a gym because I didn't feel like I was in shape enough to walk into a gym.
Yeah.
And then I knew my form. I started going to Orange Theory initially because it's that 1 hour. You can get a lot of stuff done.
Yeah.
But then I felt like I didn't have enough time with weights. Long story short, I knew I was doing things wrong. My coach would come up and tap me and she's like, you just never do it like that. And I was like, okay.
Yeah.
So is there like one thing that you should never do in a gym and one thing you should never put in your body?
Ooh, that's a good one. Let me.
Or a hard no. We can circle
I'm gonna give
back
you a couple
to that.
different answers.
Okay.
A couple different answers. I'm not a hard no person because I believe in again functional life. So I think when we assign moral value to something like food or exercise, we're going down a road that was never again designed for that. So I think all the things that I would say are no's, I do in my own life. It's just I moderate them. So if there was going to be a hard no, I would say alcohol would be the first one. I mean, there's no benefit to your body. It is a poison. It's a toxin. The only benefit, I guess, is it's fun. You lose and you have fun and giggle and all the things we know happens. You have alcohol, but from a systematic standpoint, it's only negatives. It makes you sleep worse. The data coming out now, just 1 or 2 drinks a week can have a huge impact on women's chances of breast cancer. There's new research coming out all the time. Just literally 1 to 2 drinks a week regularly. It's the more and more research comes out about how bad it really is. If I'm talking to someone advice and they say, hey, what we do, suggesting, and I'm sure we'll get into it, tracking nutrition, these things, if that's too overwhelming, what are the simple things I should just avoid? Start with alcohol, eating out, convenience eating. That's a big one. Now, do I do it? Yeah. I eat out for lunch almost every day, but I've found the things that I can eat that are consistent. But for the most average consumer, drive-thrus are a problem. Restaurants are a problem because the reason that food tastes better than when you make it at home is they're putting a lot more fat, a lot more sugar, all these things in there. And convenience eating. So we tell people,
it's a good tip.
We tell people that if you want a hack, you want to lose weight, get healthier quickly, eat your meals every time you eat. Make sure it's on a plate sitting at a table. So in other words, that's just a trick to say you're being intentional about sitting down and eating this meal.
Right.
I'm not grabbing a handful of this and that as I walk by the pantry all day.
Right.
I'm not grabbing something at the gas station while I'm getting food. I'm not going through the drive-thru, getting that bagel because I saw it at Starbucks. Sit down at a table and make it a meal. You will have a great success with just that.
That's a great little nugget as well. I like that.
And then I would say the
intentional. I like the intentionality of it.
And being intentional, it will fix almost everything. That's why, and we'll talk about tracking and measuring because it forces intentionality. But the other hard one, and I'm just going to attack this because it's the thing now. I've lived long enough to where I've seen all the nutrition fads that people are trying to sell you something come and go, and you have to. I mean, it started with Atkins in the 90s, 2000s, and then we heard that guy died from his own diet, or whatever.
Right.
And then it's gone everything from paleo and Weight Watchers and intermittent fasting, keto. So that would be the one right now. I don't know if I would choose intermittent fasting or keto. I think these are all just hacks. They're tricks.
I love that we're talking about this because there's such a rage with the whole fasting.
There is. And they're all in and of themselves, there's nothing wrong with any of them. They all have benefits, but the thing is, they're all tricks at something that should be much easier. Keto for me would bother me because keto is just the new word for the Atkins diet. Like we knew about this 20 years ago,
thing.
right?
Yes.
Everyone did it for a period of time then and failed and went back, and now it's just resurfacing and sold under a new name. So when you restrict carbohydrates, like that is for a human being and a mammal, your main source for ready state energy. They convert to glucose, right? Sugar is a carbohydrate. So for someone that's exercising especially or wants to be active, which is part of your story, you need carbohydrates. Like you're going to have more energy to do those things. That doesn't mean all the keto freaks out there are going to get on me. Oh, your body can go into ketosis and we use fatty acids to give you that energy. Yes, I understand that scientifically that can happen.
Right.
But I'm just saying that process is much harder and much longer than just eating some good carbohydrates and then going and training. You'll feel much better. So right now, I really don't like keto. I would say that's an absolute no. I think intermittent fasting's fine. There's no secret to it. It's just you're eating all your calories in a lot shorter amount of time, so it means you end up eating less calories. That's why it works.
That's why it works.
And it's a hack. If you think you can stick with it and it helps you, I'm fine with people doing that. That would be the diet ones. And in the gym, I would have to think, what's the one thing someone should never, ever do? I mean, there's exercises out there I think of all the time. Anything with bad form, I would say anything where the risk outweighs the benefit. I come from our gym, kind of was birthed out of this kind of CrossFit, high intensity athletic based movement. There's a lot of movements that people look good on Instagram and that people want to get good at.
But then you pull your back out when you try to get home.
Yeah, and that happened to me. You realize these are movements that are specifically designed for people in the Olympics.
Right. Yes, we're not Olympic athletes.
Right, where it's just not you.
A girl.
So we have
trying to get healthy.
We have right now handstand push-ups is one, everyone's doing these things and you're ramming your neck into the ground and I'm like, there's not a muscle you're training there. You can't use your, I can't give you something else for that's not going to risk that. But again, this is that line where I'd say never say never to anything because some people just enjoy them.
Enjoy the challenge of it.
Snow skiing's not a low risk or healthy thing necessarily. Neither is riding motorcycles.
Right.
But you know what? Some people love it so much. It brings them joy and that's their thing. Who am I to say don't do that?
Right.
As long as the benefits the benefits outweigh the risk, I think you're fine.
Okay. I have so many questions.
Keep going.
Let's talk about I have one exercise that I struggle with that I'm really trying to do.
Okay.
So
tell me about
pull-ups.
Yeah, that's a great one.
Really hard.
Yep.
I ended up getting the bands because I couldn't do one without the bands.
Good.
And now I've changed my bands, so I'm climbing up the ladder.
Great.
Or I'm getting more pull-ups.
Yep.
So I think I hit 10 the other day, 8 or 10. I think it was 10. Did I hit 10? 10. So
I love that.
How do you do it?
Speaking my love language now.
Yes. How do you do a pull? It's so hard. Will I ever be done with the bands? It just seems like impossible.
A pull-up is maybe if you can only do one upper body exercise for the rest of your life, it would be that.
No kidding.
It probably works more muscles. It's low impact. It's super safe.
Do you do it like this or like this?
You can do it either way.
Okay. I find it better this way.
Don't overthink that. Okay. Yeah, over that you're using a little more biceps with a supinated grip, a little bit more arms, a little bit less in the back, a little bit more lats with the over. And I think you should do them both ways.
Okay.
If a woman is able to do one, and I would specify this for those listening that know the CrossFit space and kipping pull-ups versus strict pull-ups, a woman that can do one strict pull-up is in the top 1% of all women in the world.
Wow.
99% of women will never be able to do a pull-up. And again, we could talk about the reasons. Yes, there's some musculature, some physiology. There's the reason. But the reason is that, again, I think the culture's never produced a story that makes that a woman want to pursue that.
Yes.
I would say within a year, 60 to 70% of the women in our gym can do pull-ups, not just one, multiple.
Okay. I love it.
And I think that's a phenomenal goal. And it's probably our biggest celebration in our gym happens when a woman gets their first pull-up. It's better than them getting the best mile run. It is because again, the stats, like you don't realize how elite you are now. It begins, there's only two ways to be able to do a pull-up. That's either to get stronger or to get lighter. And sometimes you need both.
Need both,
quite frankly. So it means that your strength to weight ratio is in a healthy place if you can get there and do it. So it probably means you're lean enough, you're light enough, that you're in a healthy place. It means you've gotten strong. And the way that you're doing it is a great way. You start with making yourself lighter, and that's by using those bands. That's what the band is doing. There's machines out there that can do that. And then the other way I would encourage people, you can take the band off and then jump or whatever you need to do to get yourself above the bar, and then be really, really slow letting yourself down until you can't, and then you fall, and then do it again. Or maybe even just hold yourself up there for a minute. So we call those eccentrics or negatives, and that's building
eccentric mode.
Eccentric mode. So that's the way down. Everyone's focused on the way up, but to get stronger, nothing builds strength faster than eccentric lifting. So that's going down slowly and controlling that.
Another great tip.
You'll get stronger very, very fast by doing that.
So slowing the reps down.
Slowing the reps down
on the way down,
and going ahead and getting the completeness of the top, and then controlling yourself out of it.
I love that. So let's all aim for one pull up. It's going to be my goal. I just want one without the bands. I'm getting there.
You'll get there.
Let's talk about, I came to you because I was like, I just need help with nutrition.
Yeah.
I didn't know. I felt like I had lost the weight. I was seeing a trainer, and he's awesome, Josh. And I am now just working out of a home gym, but I was seeing him. We were working on muscle training because I didn't know how to use weights. So I went to him to figure it out. And then he was like, I don't want you to lose any more weight. I just want you to work on muscles. So we started working on muscle. But then he would say, how much protein are you eating? And I'm like, I don't really know. So I found you. Allie was telling me about you. She worked with you, and she said she had amazing results. So we went to see you, and I just wanted to know, like, the macros. It was like this word that I'm like, what is a macro? I don't understand. So I wanted to know my macros. I wanted to know how much protein. And I knew there was a formula with like your weight and your height and all these things. So I went and met with Boomy. She measured me and she's like, well, that's how we're going to track your progress. And then she's like, this is how many grams of protein you should have. I didn't know you could have carbohydrates. So I had been like starving myself of carbs because if I ate a bread, I would guilt myself that I had a slice of bread. I would be like, is sourdough okay?
It's that moral value to food we have
it was
randomly ascribed.
Totally misunderstood. And so I was like not having carbs, but then I was craving like a piece of bread. But then it was a guilty pleasure, right? So anyway, I kind of was excited that I can have bread. But then it was the protein, the fat. I also was very afraid of fat. Yeah. And I used to love avocados, and I stopped eating them because I was like, wait, how many grams of fat?
It's true.
And so I felt like confusion about health food versus like, well, that's a healthy fat, and this is a macro, and this is the protein, and well, how much protein's in chicken? How much is in a steak, a fillet? Should I have a fillet? Should I have salmon? I don't know what to do.
Yeah.
So tell us about that. Like, let's talk about that because, and I'm tracking it. I'm not doing a great job. I'll be honest. I think it's difficult. Boomy's like, you're fired. I really feel like sometimes I eat fast and then I move on.
We'll talk about that afterwards. I wonder why it's hard, because that would help us to know why someone struggles with that.
Yes.
But anyways.
It is, I think it's a habit that I can't get into.
Sure.
And so I have to get into the habit, but I just have not gotten there. But let's start with the importance of protein in our diet. How much protein? Gosh, we're already at 53 minutes. I could talk to you all day about this stuff.
Let's go.
Talk to us about protein and the value of protein for good, healthy living.
Sure.
And macros. It's just all of them. The carbs and
what
the
the hell's a macro? Anyways.
Yeah, what the hell? Let's start with that. What the hell is a macro?
Buzzword now that actually I'm thankful for, because finally we're getting back. You see these things coming around, social media, around influencers, hashtag macros, if it fits your macros, we're actually finally, if we get rid of all the junk, marketing junk, we're actually getting back to the science of nutrition and health. And that's what all macros are. I would take a step back and say, if we go back to that funnel, all right, you're an F or a D, and now you're sleeping, you're maybe drinking some water, you're not eating out as much, you're walking, you're doing the basics. The next step down there is really what we would consider to be calories. And that's just a weight equation. If your main goal, the main thing to change your health right now is to lose weight, that's a calorie game. It's a math equation. Always has been, always will be. A calorie is a unit of energy. When we consume more energy than we burn, we store it. And that's what fat is. Store it as fat. When we burn more energy than we consume, we lose weight. We lose that fat. Okay? So that's actually very simple. Scientists, professional dietitians, they've never been confused by this. They've never, that's never changed since God created us. Okay? There's 3,500 calories in a pound of body fat. Roughly.
Good fun fact. I had no idea.
So right now, if you wanted to lose a pound of body fat, you've somehow got to cut 3,500 calories out. So how do we do that? Okay, let's say that we knew how many calories a day that we ate and our bodies burned. 3,500 calories, divide that by 7. That's a week. So if I ate 500 calories less a day for 7 days, I should lose about a pound of fat. Now, that in a test tube, that would work exactly. It really would. We could test that scientifically. Now, our bodies aren't test tubes. There's a lot more factors going on, but roughly that's the equation that we have to play.
That's really good broken down.
It is.
I like that. Because that doesn't seem hard, 500 calories. It doesn't seem hard,
but it's the hard part's the application. It requires maybe tracking how many calories you're eating. You got to be aware of that,
tracking,
right?
Right.
And you don't know actually how many calories a day you're burning exactly. We can measure that in some different ways, and we can estimate it, like you said, by height and weight. Plenty of calculators online to do that, but it's not going to be perfect. So if all someone wants to do is lose weight, I can do that by just playing the calorie game. Say, tell me how many calories a day you're eating, track that, and we'll lose weight. Now, the macros come in down the road. That would be the next step down the pyramid. For some people, calories is all they can handle. For someone like you, who's now doing this a while and wants to be, I'm gone from a D to a C to a B, and I'm maybe trying to get to an A now.
I want to get to an A.
Now we want to get to an A. So now we've got to come in and fine tune things. So macros, there's 3 macronutrients. All the calories you eat are always and only made up of 3 things except for one other, and I'll tell you what that is. It's funny. But there's protein, carbohydrates, and fat. Fat, not the fat around your body, but fat is in the nutrient, macronutrient, fat content in food. And they all are broken down to a certain amount of calories. So a gram of fat has 9 calories. A gram of carbohydrates and a gram of protein has 4 calories each. Okay? So fat has twice as many calories in it per gram as carbs and protein.
Also interesting.
So that's why when you said I need to watch the avocados, I'm not saying you can't eat avocados, but you actually have very good reason to think that, because there's a lot more calories densely packed in that avocado than there are in the Cheerios. There actually are.
Right. I had an avocado this morning, half.
That's great. That's probably fine.
But yes.
So when we start to understand what these macros are and what macronutrients are appropriate for your body, we starting to fine tune things. Well, why would we care about that? Well, carbohydrates, what's their purpose? It's mainly for a fuel source. So if you're an active person, you want to work out, you want to train, you want to exert a lot of active energy, you need carbohydrates to do that. And your body needs a certain amount. Fat is another energy source for our body. It's more steady state, long form energy. Think about mental focus and thinking. Think about your organs, breathing, your nervous system, your gut health, your digestive tract. That's using fat energy from fat by and large. Protein, we actually don't break protein down into energy a lot. Protein breaks down to amino acids, and it builds and repairs muscle mass. We know that. We know everyone that works out wants to eat protein. But dietarily, why protein's important it's another trick, is it digests so slowly it keeps you full. So if I eat a whole lot of protein, I'm only getting half as many calories as if I'd ate the fat, but I feel just as full. So
that
it's a trick.
is a great trick.
Yeah. Eat 8 ounces of chicken breast. And it's like you will struggle to stuff that down. Now eat 8 ounces of pizza. It'll be like that. It was great.
So true.
But because the pizza was all fat,
right,
and carbs, fat and carbs. The chicken breast was pure protein, and you're so feeling like I can't take another bite.
Yes.
Well, that's the trick. Is we're getting a whole lot more dense food, a whole lot more nutritious food with a lot less caloric bang. So when we learn how to break those things down for people, then they can actually start to meet their goals, because maybe they don't just want to lose weight. They want to lose weight in a way that gives them more energy. They want to be able to also work out. If you're in a caloric deficit, you're going to feel tired if you've just got less calories in your body because you have less fuel.
I can feel that sometimes when I'm running. Like I'm trying to watch my calories.
That's right.
Because it's the only thing I didn't know about macros.
Right.
So the only thing I was paying attention to was calories. Every container. But then I'm like, I have no energy. Why can't I run? I'm like pushing. And it's probably because I wasn't having
Probably not enough
a
carbs.
lot of fat and
or maybe
a
enough
lot of carbs.
carbohydrates in that point. You don't have enough ready state energy, and your body's trying to burn it through fatty acids. And guess what? That's a whole lot less efficient energy source. It's like you're, do you want your car to run on high octane fuel? That's what a carbohydrate would be. Or do you want to run on propane, which some cars can do? Well, no race car runs on propane.
Right.
It always runs on the highest octane, fastest burning fuel. Well, you, Chaz, want to be a race car. Now, not everybody does.
I want to be a Ferrari.
You want to be a Ferrari.
Yes.
And I think you should be a Ferrari. That's
maybe
excellence.
911 convertible. Yes.
Yeah. But my stepmom doesn't right now, Anastasia, doesn't need to be a Ferrari. She just wants to be healthy, and that's okay too. There's no moral assignments to this. Now there's the fourth one, and this is why, again, I bring it back to when you ask me what's the one thing is no. There's only one other substance on earth that has calories, but no macronutrients or nutrients at all, and that's alcohol. Isn't that funny? Out of everything else in the world, it's the only thing that has calories but no macros. So it would just lead you to believe, well, that's something that was never intended to be put in our body.
Isn't that interesting?
It is a toxin. It's the only thing we know of on earth.
That's another...
It's bizarre.
Yes,
and what happens when we drink the alcohol is our bodies metabolically have to stop everything else because it's a toxin and break down that alcohol. So that's why, and your body does that at about 1 drink per hour. We know that formula. But what happens when we're drinking is, what are we also usually doing? Eating.
Eating.
I mean, you're drinking a beer, you're eating wings. Or
yes,
you're eating
or wings,
your wine, you're having the cheese board, right? Very rarely are we just having a drink. And by the way, a lot of drinks, unless you're drinking vodka, a shot of vodka isn't pure alcohol. It's mixed with margarita mix. Or it's mixed with something else that also has calories in it, sugar, right? To make it taste palatable.
I feel like it's super high in calories also.
It's super high in calories.
I never drank just because I don't like the taste of it. Right. I've never been inclined to drink. But I wouldn't drink because I would be like, I'd rather have food than just an empty calorie.
No one's drinking 12 beers and eating a lean chicken breast with that. That doesn't happen.
Right.
So the point is the food and the sugar that's in the alcohol that we're eating now isn't get metabolized at all. It's being stored. So we're getting fatter and fatter because of the alcohol we're drinking while we're eating it. And then guess what? You don't feel awesome about waking up.
That's kind of a mind blower.
It's a mind blower.
That's big. I think that's big for a lot of people. That is powerful. Knowledge is powerful.
I can't tell how many people we've got to stop drinking in our gym, and it's been incredible. And I'm not trying to do it from a self-righteous thing. Some people still enjoy it, and you can moderate it. But it's just, again, if we talk about synergy of health, we're talking about eating macronutrients. We're talking about pursuing excellence in diet. Like, stuff's hard.
Right.
We're getting to high level stuff. Drinking doesn't hang out with those kind of people. It doesn't hang out with people that wake up early and go run. It doesn't hang out with people that want to go read with their kids before they go to bed. It doesn't hang out. It just doesn't hang around those things. And anybody that has kids know your kids become who you hang out with. That's what I tell people.
When everything you just said, it was really powerful. And I think a lot of people have asked me that, like, how are you doing this wellness? Like, what about drinking? But I don't drink. And it's very easy for me because I never had. So I know it's an issue for people. Like, but I have to have a glass of wine every day. I know.
And you dive into that.
Like,
why do you have to?
Exactly.
Do you really have to? You want to, and that's fine. But you never enjoyed it. So, right? You said
so
really.
I've never drank my whole life. Like, not a.
I was kind of the same way.
I went to a wine tasting like a year ago or a few months ago, and I had a sip. I feel like I got drunk. It was like but I've never enjoyed it. I don't like the smell. I don't like the taste. It's been it hasn't been hard because I just never have. So when people ask me,
it's hard to relate.
They're like, well, you can't relate but
it's true.
It's true. But I just would
rather.
But
when they say it to me too, I have
what
to.
What does it do for you?
And I'm not a therapist, but I'm like, you should dive down to that.
Dive into that.
What does that word mean? You have to have. No, you have to have food. You have to have sleep. Why do you have to have this? Is your life so stressful? Is it you have really poor relationships? Or what is it? I would really focus before you worry about tracking macros. I think you should fix those things first.
Yes.
Because those are going to be much more powerful. You're not going to be able to do the rest of this because your want isn't there yet.
Right. I think that's really powerful, Will. And I think that's why I really love what you're doing, because you are looking at it beyond like, no, just don't drink. Why are you drinking?
Right.
No, just don't do this. But let's talk about why you're addicted to food.
Yeah.
Because it might not be drinking, but you might be addicted to food. What are you coping with? Yep. And when you start diving in, we briefly talked about marriage for a moment.
Yeah.
And I think there's a lot of people struggling
Tons.
with
50%
marriage.
of them.
50%.
That's most of you all out there, are struggling in one way or the other, in less degrees.
And like you said, relationally, the drinking could be, maybe it's not a marriage, maybe it's just difficult relationships, maybe it's children. But how do you and your wife mingle your health together? Is that something that you partner together with? Because I feel like that's a core value for a couple.
And I'm glad
really
you asked that.
strengthen a relationship.
I'm glad you asked that. I think that we do, and it makes it. I don't know if she were here, if she would say, well, my husband owns a gym and he's this guy. So but my wife is probably eats healthier and in a lot of ways healthier than I am. We do. Your nutrition coach is also my wife's nutrition coach. I would never do that. Never coach my wife. So we do. We met actually in the gym in Knoxville she was in sales and I was a trainer and kind of a manager there.
I love it.
So we actually met in that gym. She's always pursued that. It's always been a part of her life as well. And I will say that people that get on this journey, that's kind of one of the hardest roadblocks and things you have to get past is, what if you're in a relationship with someone who maybe doesn't support this journey, but and maybe they're fine with you doing it, but at the very least, they're not participating in it with you.
Right.
Well, think about what we're talking about now. We mentioned food tracking. That's a big one. I don't believe that people should have to track their food forever, but I believe that which gets measured gets attention by default. That brings intentionality. If you want to get,
another good nugget.
I gave you my example of like a budget. If you're in debt and want to save money and your financial life's a mess, the first thing you probably do is got to get on a budget. You need to track what you're spending, where your money's going.
Right.
Everybody
Very
knows
true.
that. So the same as with food. What gets measured, what gets attention, measured gets attention. What gets attention gets changed. Well, if you're in this place where you're tracking your macros, you're measuring where you're eating, and your spouse isn't, well, what about for me, where my wife cooks most of our meals?
Right.
Am I going to she's cooking a dinner for her and my son and my daughter, and then I'm going to go over there and make my own meal like some sort of asshole?
Yes,
like, how's that going to go over my house?
Yourselves.
Right.
Yes.
Like I'm better than all you
all.
It's just going to create strife. It's going to create.
That was my previous relationship. But when you don't, it's like a partnership. And if you're not partnering,
you're not in it.
You're just not in it together.
In fact, you're almost in it. It creates almost divisiveness, like you're enemies, because you're looking over each other's back.
Yes.
I've heard of, and
here's really good.
Again, I don't mean to keep hitting this one, but the alcohol one's big. Like I've had women in tears, literally, our coaches have, and say, my husband, we got into the biggest fight. Today's Valentine's Day. I don't know when your listeners will hear this, but we got into the biggest fight at dinner because I went out and I didn't order a drink at dinner. My husband had reserved this fancy restaurant. I didn't drink anything. He got angry at me. And he's like, oh, you're obsessed with health and body. You won't even let loose, and it's Valentine's Day. And she felt so judged and so just chastised for that. And I felt the pain in that. And I understand it from both sides. I understand that alcohol is, let's not just say alcohol, poor food has infiltrated every area of our culture. You can't do a business meeting without alcohol and food.
It's everywhere, Will.
It's everywhere.
When I tell you.
You can't go to the ball field. You can't go anywhere. It's freaking
everything
everywhere.
Revolves around it.
Yep.
Whether it's a concert or a festival or dinner with friends, it's always.
Yep.
I mean, and when you go to a restaurant, you're like judged, like you got to give an extra tip because you didn't order alcohol.
Big time.
I mean, it's unbelievable.
So when you're you're doing these things that are fun, it's supposed to be life-giving with a partner, with someone you have in a relationship with, and what they don't see, they're not looking at like, oh, you're pursuing excellence in your health. No, they're seeing it as you don't want to have fun.
Right.
You lack of fun. You're not participating in this thing I've set up for you.
Right.
As a side note, I also, in a few cases, I'm like, well, if this is the man, judging the wife, I think that he's worried he's not going to get laid because at the end of this night, and I do believe that to some extent. He needs to like get off his high horse for a minute and come down and maybe join you.
Yes.
And so the advice I give people, it's a hard road to manage, and every situation is unique. But one of our biggest videos or educational pieces we put out to our clients, you probably saw it, you will at some point. We did a video that kind of went semi-viral where I just said, you need to learn to be weird and understand that being weird is cool.
Yes. Not the norm.
It's not the norm.
I tell my kids that. My college-age daughter,
all of our heroes in the world, if you think about them, I mean, think about Elon Musk or any of these guys that are doing this incredible thing. They're all weirdos. They're all weird, really weird.
Yes.
So the most successful people on earth are always weird because they're different. Because normal is broke.
I kind of love that.
Yeah, normal's unhealthy. Normal's divorced. Normal is broken. Normal is like I said, going to bed at night with wine and waking up with coffee just to get yourself going. That's normal.
That is so true.
And who wants that? You want to be weird. So I challenge people, like, go out to that business meeting and sit down with that client you're trying to sell something to and order a Diet Coke.
Yes.
And he orders the drink, and be brave and be bold and be confident in that. And don't just wait and see if he doesn't actually start asking you questions. If it doesn't start a conversation, maybe at first they laugh at you, the table laughs at you, but I bet over time they're actually looking kind of inspired.
Right.
And they're like, he's different. Why is he different? And I bet it starts a conversation.
Right.
And maybe even leads to better business. I don't know.
I agree.
But the same with your spouse. If you can be confident and say, no, it's not that I don't want to have fun with you. I love this place. This restaurant's great. This concert's great. We're having a great time here. I don't need to have these drinks. I don't need to eat chicken wings. I don't need the nachos to have fun. You realize that, right? I want to be with you. And maybe you start bringing them along with you.
Yes. People notice.
Yep.
They do notice, and it might feel like it's the weird thing. I kind of like to be weird, so I'm cool with that. But it doesn't go unnoticed, and it always leads to a conversation. And then I think sometimes that conversation continues in their head once they leave you.
Well, excellence is contagious. That's what I always say.
I love that.
You want to be surrounded by people that are excellent. And the world is not. The world sucks.
Yes.
And everyone's walking around, they suck. And so they look to Instagram, they look to these heroes.
That's why they're looking for influencers. People want to be inspired. They want to be influenced. They're laying in bed, they're scrolling.
Yes.
They have no energy, and they want someone that's inspiring,
That's
right?
So if you're pursuing excellence, stand on it and be bold and be confident and understand at first people are going to sneer at you and you might get laughed at, but it's probably because they're jealous, actually.
Yes,
they don't have the power to do that. And I think that should make you feel good.
I think that's fantastic.
Now, I hope it doesn't lead to a divorce or something. I don't want those things. I want to help everybody, do this together. But I know there's going to be situations where some people are going to track their macros and be diligent, and their spouse or whoever's in their life aren't going to come along. Maybe they're even deterring from that. And that's a personal decision. That person, how much space do I need to create? How long will I allow that?
Right.
If they're judging you for that, it's probably not a super authentic and deep relationship anyways, would be my opinion.
Yes.
So luckily
another
we've never
thing
had
to
that.
evaluate. A lot of evaluating. Your faith is really in the forefront, I think, of your business. It feels like it to me. How do you practice your faith? I feel like you have an evangelical spirit.
Sure.
And I feel like you might not be doing a ministry, but I think you're doing ministry through your community in some ways. I think your body's your temple, right?
Yeah.
And we need to be good stewards of it. So I think my last question, there's so many. I could literally sit here. We might have to have a part 2.
Okay.
But tell me about faith in Synergy and how that's played a role in
well, I'm unashamed and unapologetic in believing in that. And we could have a whole nother podcast on that story. Your story was great too. And I say the same thing about you. I think, as I told you, I don't think selling someone a pillow changes their life, but I think your story does. And the platform you gave, that is ministry. Everything can be ministry.
Right. I do believe that.
Well, I do believe, again, and I use the fact that we are created uniquely, what I believe, in God's image, and I think His glory is therefore contained within us, and it points us back to that Creator. And I think anything that we do, that's excellence. That's the love of God and the excellence. That's why we even have a desire. Even those that have been strayed so far from that and feel so lost, they still have that piece of desire. Like, I want to change. I want to be better. Now, maybe it's too hard for them. Maybe they give up, they try and they give up, they try and give up. But isn't that the message of the gospel and the cross?
Yes.
Is that we try, we give up, we try, we give up. And then when we finally point back to the Creator who we're made to, that's where that's where the forgiveness and the salvation and the success and the win is found.
Yes.
It's the same for me in health. You've said so many things here even today, like it's never too late. It doesn't matter how far gone you are. It doesn't matter how many times you screwed up. I screw up still every week in my diet. There's days I wake up and don't work out.
I had Cheez-Its yesterday.
Right.
Yes.
Remember, you are not just forgiven by your God. You're forgiven by your body. Everything is one day. We're talking about consistency over time. I think that we owe it to ourselves, if we are going to respect that we are created to be unique. Our body is a temple. Now, does that just mean it needs to look better than everyone else's body? No, I don't think that means that. I mean, it means that's how we treat it, and that's what we do with it. Do we have the energy to serve other people? If you didn't have the energy to get up and talk to people through a camera and through a phone and to do this in the morning because you were tired in bed because you were hungover from the night before, you are actually... I'm not a pastor. I don't know if I'd go theologically as far as say you're sinning, but I think you're for sure squandering what God has given you.
100%.
And losing an opportunity.
Yes.
So I do see the conjunction of all things
100%.
health. I think we should be healthy. I think we should enjoy life. I think that our role, if you want to talk about being alive, is to glorify God and then to enjoy Him and the fruits of that. So I enjoy playing sports. You enjoy walking. You enjoy being active.
I feel closer to God when I'm active.
100%.
I'll go on a run and I'm like having a conversation with Him, a walk with Him, worship music. I mean, that got me through in the beginning. It was me and Him. And honestly, just to bring it back, like God is for you and he wants it
yes.
for you more than you want it for you, because you will be your best you if you get control of yourself.
That's beautiful.
I mean, that's the truth. I mean, I feel like I am my best self, but it's because I finally surrendered. I had all these plans and ideas of, and efforts, but the efforts were about size and like weight.
Yeah.
And it wasn't about
anything real.
Yeah, it wasn't real. And I submitted to God and I was like, here I am. And, you know, I'm going to go and I'm going to trust that you're going to get me across the line.
Yeah.
And he did. He will meet you today. If you're 80 pounds overweight, 100 pounds, if you're 20, maybe you just want to stop drinking today. I feel like that's been a big word. You can do it. And if you feel like you can't, the power of God will get you through that.
Amen.
Yeah. I mean, we have the power
You're
of
preaching
God.
now, Chaz. Let's go.
I mean, get it out,
someone
baby.
needs to write that down right now.
Yes.
Take out your pen. You write that down. Put it in the back of your Bible.
It's the truth,
I
though.
think I don't know if it's the right way, but I tell the small group I lead all the time. Like for me, fitness for some reason has always been the foundation of that. If I find that I'm eating well and working out, I'm a better dad.
Yes.
I'm a better husband. I'm more diligent in my quiet time. Because again, I think discipline and excellence is contagious and it infects everything else around you. Now, should it be, I get that waking up in the morning and reading my Bible and praying should probably be the foundation. But I'm just telling you, for me, what's always worked is if I exercise and eat right and feel good and sleep well, it makes all those things, including spending time with my Creator, spending time with God who loves me, and then pouring that into other people is much easier and all works. So I don't know what comes first, the chicken or the egg. I just know what's worked for me, and I think it could work for others too. I think it will. I've seen it.
Okay, I have seen it too.
Yeah.
I mean, I've definitely seen it in me personally. I've met people. I mean, today I was at breakfast with a girlfriend, and someone came up to me, and she was like, I mean, I'm just, I've been watching, you know, like you said, people are watching.
Yeah.
And she's like, I'm taking control of my life. I'm taking control of my health. And there was a glow about her. And I know this person, I met her at a design consultation like 5 years ago. And she's changed and she's evolved. She's going through a really difficult divorce as well. But it's like the value of people watching you change and your children watching you change. So when I was my worst self, unhealthy, not being intentional, not thinking, my kids were doing the same. Like
Really?
they were all athletes, my cheerleader, football players, quarterbacks.
Yeah.
But then they had injuries and we were all just watching Netflix because nobody could walk. I had two boys that literally
Really?
broke both legs in football. And it was a lot of time just sitting. And we were just getting worse and worse and worse. And we were, like I said, pizza and ice cream and popcorn and just like comforting with food. And there wasn't a lot of movement. And I will tell you, we completely adopted bad habits at each other.
Yeah.
Then when I made this change, I did it really so I could be a good mom for them during this really hard time we were going to walk through. They started like slowly. My daughter came home from school. She's like, oh my gosh, like, who are you? Like, you're a different person. She's like, can I go walk with you? Can I go? She lost like 20 pounds. My son right now is on this massive journey. He's lost a bunch of weight. He's working out in the gym. He hasn't been in the gym since he stopped playing football. It was a really hard thing for him.
Would you say he was out of shape too?
Oh, yes, he would say that. I mean, he was out of shape. He was defeated, I think, in his spirit because he wasn't playing his game, football.
Yep.
And he didn't want to be in a gym. He just kind of gave up. And he started a business. He's a small business owner, entrepreneur.
Wow.
That took a toll.
Yep.
And he realized he had no margin for himself. And so he's like, you're the busiest person I know. And if you can do it, I can do it. So he started going to the gym. He goes later. He started cooking. He's doing the ground beef all the time and very proud of him. So all of my kids, my youngest lost like 20 pounds. So it's amazing the power you have because everybody, they're watching.
Yeah.
I mean, I feel like our workplace is different, not because of me, but we all are talking about health now instead of like, we used to talk about what's your best restaurant? Where'd you have a cheeseburger, over the weekend? Anyway, conversation has changed. Habits have changed. I feel like habits.
Yep.
I know we were about to wrap up, but this is probably going to be a part 2. Yeah. But I feel like let's talk about habits.
Yeah.
You can have really good bad habits or really bad habits.